When I was a little girl, my brother and I would lie in bed, our imaginations fully engaged, while our dad read us The Hobbit. He did all the voices and made it quite the exciting adventure. All the images of Middle-earth I have in my head are, to this day, shaped by that experience. Safe and warm and sleepy, imagining dark forests full of elves and giant spiders, funny poems, and clever dragons. So when I'm sad or feeling lost, I pick up the oldest book I own. I've been carrying it with me throughout my life as it gets ever more tattered and dog-eared, and now when I read those words, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit," it brings that safe and happy time of my life back to me. I'm older now, way older, so some sadness tinges the edges of the nostalgia I feel when I hold that book, but that's part of what makes it special. As I got older, I found other media, mostly books, but music, TV, and movies as well, that I would come back to over and over for comfort depending on my mood. The Golden Girls, The Wheel of Time, The Princess Bride, Ever After, Galaxy Quest, Swan Song. I add them all to my assemblage of comfort media as I go along my path in life, and I revisit each of them often. The most recent shiny new addition to my collection, one that has continued to stand out over the last few years, is Good Omens. This show seems to be a bright beacon in the lives of thousands of people, myself included. Recently, I've also seen some people saying things like, "It's just a story. It's not something meaningful or important." With everything that's been going on in the world lately, I've been looking at these things, old and new, and wondering exactly what is comfort media? What do these stories do for fans? Is a story ever really more than just a story? So let's take a look at comfort media in general, and then apply what we find to Good Omens, and see what we can discover. A brief history of comfort media. Comfort media is not a new phenomenon. As evidenced by the Lascaux cave paintings in France, humans have been telling each other stories for tens of thousands of years, using them to convey important meanings and lessons, to create and preserve traditions. Stories have always been, and still are, an integral part of every culture, and we've been using them for comfort as long as we've been telling them. Go back in history in any part of the world, and you'll find that storytelling was important, not just to the ruling and clerical classes, but in the lives of everyday people. Not every story is a hero's journey. Joseph Campbell is wrong about that. In ancient Greece, a grieving parent might look to the story of Persephone. Egyptians might have followed the story of Osiris and Isis. Mayans who felt they'd been wronged had the story of Hunahpu and Xbalanca to ease their pain. Aboriginal Australians had and still have a myriad of stories of the Dreamtime to help them feel connected to the land, their ancestors, and to each other. When in a period of turmoil, a devout Christian might find solace in reading their favorite parable. This would be true in 1200 AD or today. Thomas Jefferson notoriously retired to his library in times of stress. Many in ancient China referenced the 5 classics and the 4 books. Humans are addicted to stories, telling them and hearing them, and it looks like we always have been, and there are excellent reasons why. Healing and morals. In psychology, the soothing effect that comes from repeatedly revisiting the same material is known as experiential control. When we know the outcome of a story, we produce less of the stress hormones cortisol and adrenaline. The use of comfort media can actually be helpful in the process of recovering from trauma, as it can provide a safer way to experience strong emotions, and it can serve as a guide to process grief, anger, and even physical pain. A recent study even showed that people suffering from chronic pain found some relief listening to their favorite music, enough that it could significantly reduce opioid use. People suffering from anxiety experienced a similar benefit. The type of music didn't matter, from classical to heavy metal, as long as it was something the patient enjoyed and something they felt they had control over choosing. It seems to be a modern trend to label the act of turning to comfort media as escapism, something almost childish. Adults don't need stories, we gotta pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. I also think comfort media has incorrectly and unfairly been attributed as something that is mostly an indulgence of young, female, or queer people. This perspective would ignore the things traditionally viewed as more masculine, things like gaming, music, and sports, as comfort media, which they absolutely are. Although sports don't tend to have a predetermined narrative, they still have characters and outcomes that fans get invested in, and video games are now being recognized as having some of the best narrative stories out there. Hello, The Last of Us. And of course, people of all genders and orientations partake in all sorts of media. I'm no longer a young woman, and I consider myself an avid and experienced gamer. My husband wouldn't watch a sports game if you paid him. We can't box people up so neatly. Part of the idea of escapism is true. We are escaping those negative chemical and hormonal reactions, harmful or distressing levels of adrenaline, for instance. But it isn't usually the turning away from introspection and healing that many people paint it as, escapism as a form of ignoring a problem. When we indulge in our favorite comfort media, we are often engaging in an act of self-healing. That peaceful lull in a time when we are overwhelmed can provide us with the strength we need to fight on in our daily lives. And the stories themselves often bestow more than the equivalent of a warm hug. They can provide us with a message of hope. They can inspire us to be our best selves, to be courageous in the face of difficulties, to get up and keep fighting. And also, not to feel ashamed when we find that today is not the day we have the strength to fight. They allow us to empathize with other people in other situations that we ourselves have not experienced. Another book I remember vividly from my childhood was called Pierre, A Cautionary Tale. The story is about a boy who is selfish, and over the course of the short book, learns that showing concern and care for others is good not just for them, but for him. It ends with this short phrase: "The moral of Pierre is care." I remember being fascinated by this. I had never seen a story that so clearly made a point before. This idea, the moral of the story, became a tiny bit of an obsession with me. I started trying to find the moral in every story. I guess I'm still doing that today. Thanks, Pierre. I slowly began to realize, even at that young age, that stories were more than just stories. They exist for more than mere entertainment. I am also reminded of an episode of The Golden Girls. That show is like 90% humor, but one of the reasons I believe the show endures to this day is that the humor was often used very smartly as a way to address some very serious issues. This has given it the rare trait of mostly holding up when viewed by modern audiences. In the episode called Rose Fights Back, Rose, played by the legendary Betty White, had just been informed that she would no longer be receiving her dead husband's pension. His company had misused the funds, and it was all gone. She tells the other girls how there's an elderly homeless lady she passes on her way to and from her part-time job at the counseling center, which, by the way, does not pay enough to cover her expenses. And when she saw this lady with her cart full of stuff, Rose thought she must have been lazy or stupid to end up like that. But now, Rose looks at that woman and thinks, she's not lazy or stupid, she's me. And now, although I haven't had Rose's exact experience, I have experienced this shared empathy for the unhoused. This is just one tiny example of how comfort media is so much more than selfishly indulging in something we love. It can be a tool for teaching life lessons, but also expanding our experiences beyond the boundaries of our own four walls, a way to see and understand other people. A secret cultural language. Comfort media provides us with a way to communicate with each other, sometimes about ideas that are otherwise taboo or very deep and complex, with a unique cultural language. If I say to another Galaxy Quest fan, never give up, never surrender, they get the emotional impact of an entire movie from that one phrase. It means so much more than those 5 words. As You Wish has the same emotional punch. It doesn't just mean I love you. It means all of the lifelong dedication of both an enduring romance and the unconditional love of family. Of course, Good Omens is rife with these sorts of phrases that I see fans use all the time with each other. Humorous parody and memes of our favorite media can provide a world of meaning with a laugh, like this little gem that someone shared on Tumblr using a phrase from Good Omens. And this brings me to my next idea. Comfort media, when shared among like-minded fans, brings an entirely new angle to the experience. Different than an individual rewatching their favorite show or rereading their favorite book for the umpteenth time, it gives us a shared cultural lexicon, almost a secret language. A shorthand where, with a single image or reference, we can convey a world of information to each other, and in that sharing, we begin building community. Humans are social creatures. We need to feel connected to other humans in order to thrive. That sense of connection is vital to our mental, emotional, and physical health. Society feels fractured right now. More and more people are leaving their religious backgrounds that they were born into, which was, for good or ill, a place people have historically found that feeling of belonging with its shared stories and music and ritual. More of us are physically isolated from the groups of people we do identify with and we wish to belong to, who share our values and beliefs. It feels like there are two big camps and lots of little tiny ones inside of those. A very distressing experience for most people. If you feel alone, isolated, outcast from the group, you might watch Crowley and Aziraphale, also lonely, isolated, and outcast. Find a lasting bond and find comfort in that, and then feel a part of that bond. How comfort media gives rise to fandoms. Fandoms arise when whole groups of people find that they identify with certain media, and I think fandoms are a natural outgrowth of the comfort media experience, and I believe they transcend what people disparagingly call comfort media. Good Omens is my comfort media right now, and it is likely at least one of yours as well. And now, when you go back to it to find soothing relief and a place to heal from pain or trauma, you don't have to have that experience alone. It becomes a shared group experience. I see this happening at watch parties all the time. The participation as a group brings new dimensions of connectedness and healing to comfort media. I don't have any studies to back this part up. This is anecdotal, I admit. I think that just means someone should probably look into this more. What is any community or cultural group throughout history but a group of people with a shared experience, shared values, shared history, language, and ideas? Good Omens specifically seems to meet this moment, as it were. Its themes seem more relevant than ever, while the humor and charm can't help but make you smile. I suspect we have a really rough few years ahead. I don't deny it. I think a lot of us are feeling distressed, isolated, despondent, even a little hopeless. But we can use our comfort media to our advantage. I won't let anyone tell me that the things I find meaningful are just a story, because it isn't true, even scientifically speaking. It's so much more. I can't tell you what to do, but I'm going to keep looking for the deep meaning in stories, keep amplifying the stories that reflect positive messages, because we really need to hear the stories that tell us what happens when people do stand up for each other and stand together. I will not be ashamed to watch Good Omens for the 74th time, or to reread Wheel of Time for the, I sincerely lost count, or to listen to my favorite Broadway musicals while singing along at the top of my lungs. And I hope that you find a place where you can share that comfort media that means so much to you. Join a fandom, find your people, your community. If you're feeling down and need to be lifted up, there are people out there who are just waiting to do that for you, people just like you. We can restore our faith in each other because when you look around at all the people who are lifting you up, you'll find out that you're holding them up as well. That's really the only way we're going to get through the next few years, helping each other. Stay safe. I want to encourage people to take real actions to maintain their safety as well. Use social media wisely right now. You may need to delete posts that put yourself or others in potential danger, make liberal use of safety features like blocking, and be extra safe in person. Only go out in a group or with people you trust if you feel physically threatened. If you want to assist other people, there are safe spaces online that you can direct folks for their mental health and a host of resources. I have linked some of those down in the description below. These include a list of resources for queer folks who are experiencing and need to escape or are seeking ways to avoid state-sponsored hate and violence. Sadly, we may start to see this sort of thing more and more in person, and to that end, I have also linked a resource that teaches safe behavior for bystander intervention to stop hate-based harassment in the description below as well. Safely, I would love to hear about your favorite comfort media, Good Omens and others. How it has positively impacted your life, friends you've made, any part of your personal journey. It can be anything from Magic the Gathering to Pokemon to K-pop. And what has Good Omens specifically done for you? I look forward to reading your comfort media experiences in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and remember, you really aren't alone.